All right, we'll start off with the first question. Joe, you can start off with it if you don't mind.
I don't mind at all.
Do you have a plan to address the rain tax issue?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, there have been a lot of taxes that have been thrust upon our neighborhoods and our county over the years. The rain tax, however, is something that really has a detrimental effect, particularly here in the east side. You know, small business has a big struggle competing with neighboring businesses of similar sizes, but the rain tax, when you're competing against the big boys, I can think of one area in particular down on North Point Boulevard that has an $8,000 rain tax, and it's a struggling small business. It's counterintuitive to me as an economic development professional to thrust that type of tax onto a small business, or any business. So what we're doing, there's already been a resolution put on the floor of the council to take on this in February of next year. And I can assure you that it will be amended to take care of the small, well, all businesses, but particularly the small business person that struggles every day, the mom and pop. When they get up in the morning and they go into their business and they say, geez, you know, we have this, we got to buy a new piece of equipment, now we got this tax to deal with. And I think that what we do is we band together as a county council, we work together for the people, for you, and also I want input from each and every one of you. I think it's very, very important. As a full-time council person, I am very, very interested in hearing your positions on every topic, but the rain tax in particular. Was part of, actually in 1974, the Clean Water Act was passed in Washington, D.C. by President Nixon, and this is just an offshoot of that bill, that federal bill. And it took a long time to trickle down, and here we are in Baltimore County with a lot of small businesses in dire straits because of the big boys not being here anymore, trying to make a living. So as your council person, I will fight, as I always fight for the small business person, to help their cause in amending this tax.
Thank you, Joe. Todd?
Sure, thank you. Thank you to the Business Association and to the Volunteer Fire Hall for hosting. This is the final, as far as I'm aware, Joe, unless we want to do this again. This is the final debate candidate forum that we'll have. I do want to thank my opponent. He is a family man, and these things take a lot of time away from families and the people we love. But you all have been an integral part of this process. A lot of you have been to many of these events. Just by show of hands, who has not been to one of these candidate forums yet before? Thank you for coming tonight. And I'm thankful to the Business Association for not allowing opening statements tonight, because I think at this point, after 4 or 5 of these events, Joe and I can probably deliver our opening statements for each other pretty much verbatim. So the question is about the rain tax. I have been against the rain tax from the beginning. My website has said so since we launched our campaign back in July. I was proud to participate in an anti-rain tax rally held by this business association months and months and months ago. Now, my opponent, Joe, I'm not aware of mention of you being against the rain tax or amending it on your website. So I know that may not be the case or not at this point. It may have been edited since then, but I've been against it since the beginning. Precedent had been set by the state of Virginia, a case that went to their Supreme Court where they said that it was unconstitutional. We are not going to implement it in the state of Virginia. So only 10 jurisdictions in the state of Maryland, only 10, were saddled with this rain tax that, as my opponent correctly mentioned, saddles small businesses with the inability to grow and the inability to hire right off the bat. Local supermarket chain, $180,000 in rain tax. That's on top of their healthcare being increased, on top of a gas tax hike, on top of a toll hike that is causing costs for all of us to rise, because all of those things end up coming down to the consumer, coming down to our level. So the plan is to model an amendment or repeal the rain tax at the county level, modeled on what Carroll County has done, which is to absorb the necessary money to improve our stormwater management infrastructure, to absorb that into our general budget. Carroll County just had their program, I guess it was about 5 months ago, approved by the Attorney General, that it did meet the requirements. So there is a plan to amend it, but I want to extend this to some other issues on taxes. Property tax relief for seniors. They haven't had property tax relief in 25 years. We need to take a look at property tax relief for seniors. Now, we also can't talk about job creation and economic development without tax relief. And part of the councilman's job, in my opinion, is to lobby Annapolis, not only to make the, is this working?
I think did you hit the button?
No. Testing, there we go. Maybe I did. Again, as part of the council's job to work with our elected officials in Annapolis and work with the General Assembly, not only to create a better business climate in the state of Maryland, but a better business climate for our district. We are trying to improve our job creation mechanisms here in our district, but we're doing it with one arm tied behind our back because the business climate in Maryland in general and our district in specific is so bad. So again, a plan to repeal the rain tax, a plan for tax relief for our senior citizens, and a plan to work with Annapolis to create a better climate for business in the state of Maryland and our district specifically. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. As our next question is, what do you foresee as the future of the Fort Howard property, given that the developer is proposing the development of 1,473 residents? How do you feel about that number?
Well, many of you were in this very room before the primary when we had a council candidate forum, and during that evening I showed a U.S. Army jersey that was given to me by a family of combat disabled veterans from the Vietnam War, from Iraq, and from Afghanistan, and a couple of those folks are here in attendance tonight. That was a real honor for me to receive that, and the reason that they gave that to me is because they know where I stand on Fort Howard. Fort Howard was intended to be for veterans from the very beginning. From the 1900s on, it was intended to be for veterans. The proposal that we've seen now lacks a focus for veterans. In fact, opens it up to a retirement community regardless of veteran status or not. The proposals that I've seen and read about and talked to community leaders about does not show a veterans focus, and I think that's a real shame. We are one of the most patriotic communities in the country. We've been recognized in various capacities for that. I would like us to be known as a community that is compassionate for veterans, that is a destination from across the country for veterans to come to on this beautiful property down at the end of this road here. Now, I view the opportunity at Fort Howard, I view it as an opportunity to get rid of a blighted property in our community. However, just because we could build a mammoth development down there does not mean that we should. So the sheer size of this, one of the concerns that the community has is the sheer size of the development. I've heard almost 1,500 units. I forgot the number that Mr. Hobson just announced. 1473. We're one lane in, one lane out. I've yet to speak to anybody on the North Point Peninsula who wants a development of that size. So we need to balance the need to remove blight with the balance of what's best for the North Point Peninsula. And I've pledged in at least 3 public forums that I pledged to the people of the North Point Peninsula that I will protect them from overdevelopment. And that pledge goes to the people of Back River Peninsula, it goes to the people of Dundalk, that we need to develop our property in a smart way that does not fundamentally change the charm and beauty of a community. And what I mean by that is if you're talking about 1,500 or so housing units,